has been very emphatic that we will offer services and government will be there to serve all Kenyans, irrespective of who you voted for and where politically you are affiliated to.
That's
and I think
clear.
that is what they should be
yeah.
pushing for.
Yeah.
Right.
Not saying bring our cousins and brothers to government.
Oh, no.
Can I say, first of all, CORD has no intention and has never asked for being included in the government. I don't know where this whole theory came from. Saying that you must include all Kenyans into the government does not mean that CORD is begging to be included in the government. No. We are confident that of our position as opposition, people in the opposition, we'll execute our mandate. But let me say, our constitution talks of equitable distribution of resources across the country.
Yes.
We just want to audit things. And Makali here asked a very good question. He said, have you taken the moment to stop and wonder what these other guys are asking for, what CORD is pushing for in terms of inequality of distribution of resources? Is it real? Because I can tell you there are government departments which you can
resources,
be tabled, which reports. No, even positions is part. You see, employment is part of the resource that we talk about. It is whether we like it or not. And I can tell you that there are certain departments of the government where if you do an audit, you will be shocked to see that whereas the spirit is that not more than 1/3 of the workforce of that particular thing should be from one ethnic community. You'll be very surprised to see in excess of 50% of one community being in that particular
all hired under the Jubilee government.
Look, it doesn't have to be hired in the Jubilee government. You don't have to say about the Jubilee government. Whether even if it is when Raila was in a prime minister of the country, if he put a certain department where there were so many of his people in that place, that too calls for an audit, if there is any. But we must accept that there are inequalities. We must accept that, unfortunately, in all the senior appointments that we have seen, that has happened during the Jubilee time. Unfortunately, without, we must say the issues in reality, has been shared on the 50-50 basis between TNA,
Rachel Mamo,
between TNA
and
Look,
those are Kikuyus or Kalenjins.
Look, it's very easy to figure out and see a Somali amongst a crowd. Abdikadir in the office of the president is obviously visible amongst many. So it's easy to say there he is. But let me say that what Kenyans are asking for, if there is unfair distribution and giving of Somalis on many positions, that too, if it is in excess of what is required in spirit, that too welcomes an audit. Yes. But we must
he agrees the iniquity is not about challenging the Kikuyus as perpetuated by CORD.
You see, again,
let me step in, because what he's talking about is inequity across the board.
Yes.
But you seem to be saying that they are charging you with inequity of perpetuating the inequalities in our society. And the point that is coming out really is that you're arguing from a very partisan point of view, whereas he's saying that if it exists within Jubilee or within CORD, it's disgraceful and must be audited and called out. But the question then becomes, you're both young. You've referenced meeting with young people from the other side. Is there any point of convergence?
Yes.
Is there anything that you, as young parliamentarians, can do differently from the so-called owners of your parties?
In fact, let me say this. Is a discussion that we had with about 3 members of the CORD coalition. And I also be inviting in fact, he's one of the members that I did ask the members I was speaking to approach. We see if we can get a coalition of both young members of parliament from the CORD coalition, the Jubilee coalition, and sit and dialogue on those issues that touch on the lives of Kenyans without all these political tensions being hyped up across the country. Because really, I cannot see what is this emergency that we are being given ultimatums for. By Sabasaba, you must dialogue with us, and if you don't, you will see this tsunami coming. We do not want to see tsunamis coming. We want to address...
Perhaps the language could also be a bit more responsible.
Definitely. Because we want to be responsible leaders. We want to deal with the issues that the Kenyan public elected us to deal with. If it's the insecurity that is there, this is not a Jubilee
Mutegi,
problem.
come in.
Jacob Midiwo was on this seat sometimes back.
Yes.
He had very nasty things to say about this parliament and particularly parliamentary committees. He says people do summon cabinet secretaries, not because the issue is there. In fact, the latest was this one about the security standard.
Safaricom. Yes.
And some people are suggesting perhaps the committee is even doing that at the behest of another company. But anyway, he did say and give an example that when they did one committee did the investigations about Westgate, they wrote a very short report simply because they were compromised. And he gave an example, they were taken places. And in fact, that report ended up being thrown out. What do you say about corruption, particularly you young people?
Let me say that I want to agree with my colleague, Honorable Kimani, and I are indeed very close people, and we discuss issues with in a very non-partisan manner. We have in the past helped each other in motions, in bills that he was driving to ensure that we get Kenyans a fair legislation that can improve lives. And I'm glad that the forum that he has spoken about is one that will continue to enhance this dialogue. And Kenyan politics is so dynamic. You know, you never know that he might be in ODM next in 2017. So this is, and I wanted to
answer on legislative.
Can you answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to answer on the issue of the corruption and the people who spoke about this. Let me say, it is very unfortunate for any person to try and or belittle Parliament, or in any way try and taint the image of Parliament. For whatever freedom that Kenyans are enjoying today, for whatever the good reason and for the good constitution that we have at hand today, when rallies were fought and running battles happened in town, the discussions ended up in Parliament. It is Parliament, particularly National Assembly, that has salvaged Kenya from the bad situations.
You seem to be saying that Jakayo Midiwo is damaging Parliament's image. I
want to say that without naming any particular person, I want to say anybody who has said anything about corruption in Parliament and belittling committees of the House is not doing Parliament a good thing. We have, I think, spoken very tough on those issues on the floor of the House. If there are any issues, if there are any evidential issues that a person has against any particular member or any particular chair or any particular committee, they have the right to address. The Parliament has mechanism to address that. They can even go, if they have direct cases of corruption, go and report that and get that particular issue, whatever. But coming to say that, parliamentarians are this, parliamentarians are corrupt, Parliament is doing great jobs. One of them is just the budget work that we have just concluded yesterday. We have done this country a great pleasure in terms of going into those issues. As young parliamentarians, as I want to say that indeed we feel huge responsibility to move this country away from the old thinking mentality of politics and hold hands and join hands in the common whatevers. But occasionally, if you see people taking a retreat and withdrawing their signatures, sometimes there's undue pressure from the cracking whip of the party whip, but not corruption, not whatever. But I'm sure we will hold hands.
If corruption in Parliament was not outed, would it not just continue unchallenged?
What I'm saying is that it has to be challenged.
No, I understand that you say that there are mechanisms.
Yes.
But for us, because you're trying to impeach cabinet secretaries for abuse of office or whatever charges you say they have committed. So should you not be held to the same scrutiny, even by the public that you serve?
Let me say, the Parliament has its own mechanism. As an individual, I represent a constituency. So does Mheshimiwa represent a constituency. Any Kenyan who has any evidence against any particular member, any Kenyan member of the public, can either do a petition to Parliament or can write to the Kenya Anti-Corruption, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption to take action, can report the matter to police. There are very many avenues to address that. And what more even to allow Kenyans to come around a table on a dialogue method and let them ventilate on those issues and let them
But
say.
how
let me
do
say
you
this a
explain
minute.
this?
So-
Because what I'm
Yeah.
seeing is that on issues that pertain to your parties, you fight tooth and nail. But where it concerns your own security, you close ranks. Because that's what I've seen before.
Let me say, we are not even closing ranks anymore. And now on to agree with Aden what he said, that one is a particular member who did say that, I think it was on this show or another show in this station. But
Was it
the
on this
onus,
show and
the onus actually was on the Honorable Jacoyo Midiwo to come to Parliament, and indeed I remember Speaker Kamukunji was convened
Was convened and
to
then
allow him, if he has got any evidence,
To table it.
and Parliament would have dealt with the issues at hand.
What happened?
And I want to say
The
this.
truth is that there were no members who turned up.
No, we all turned up.
Members,
We
with
turned
Jacoyo
up in the house
himself,
was
I
full.
can tell you we
What
were
happened?
there.
Yeah.
What happened?
Myself and Aden were there. Jacoyo was not there.
He didn't come.
He didn't come.
Yeah.
Two, let me say this, and it's not a question of closing ranks, because Jacoyo again may have been motivated by one thing, partisan politics again, because all the committee chairs in the House are Jubilee committee chairs. Therefore, for me,
Except Pick and Pack.
yeah, except
Pick and Pack.
the Public
Accounts
Investments
and
Committee and Public
Investments,
Accounts.
yeah.
Those are the ones that are the chairmen are called. Therefore, I took it with a pinch of salt and probably said this is the reason why he's not showing up, because it was a statement that was just to make a political point and really had no evidence to adduce even to your colleagues. And let me say, it's unfortunate when people cast aspersions on their colleagues in Parliament and other leaders.
Or Parliament as an
Or
institution.
Parliament as an institution. Because this is the institution that the Kenyan
He gave
people
two examples,
have bestowed.
Westgate and the Standard
Gauge Railway.
Let me say this because I sit in the Public Investments Committee. Westgate, they did a report, and I must say the report was shoddy.
And we threw it out.
And we threw it out collectively,
Yeah.
both Jubilee and CORD members.
So
of
why would you
Parliament.
accuse Midiwo
Two,
of being partisan? He said what transpired and why that report was thrown out.
what we had wanted Midiwo to do is adduce evidence that the shoddy work that had been done by the committee
Was
was,
as a result.
indeed as a result of corruption within the committee. That has never been adduced
Well, what
to
he
date.
said is that when members, that committee visited DOD to follow up on the logistics of how the operation had been conducted, and those members were facilitated.
That is all the evidence
Yeah.
that
That is the
Parliament.
fact.
That is all the evidence that members of Parliament would have wanted to get from the Honorable Jacoyo Midiwo. But instead of adducing that evidence, he disappeared.
Okay.
Two, on SGR. SGR was interrogated by two committees of the House.
Right.
The Committee on Transport, which is chaired by a Jubilee member, and the Public Investments Committee, which I vice chair and is chaired by a CORD member. And let me say, when it comes to parliamentary committees, the political party boundary does not exist. We deliberate on issues,
Yeah.
and reports are done based on the facts collected, period.
Okay.
I think that there is just thinking and
Yes.
looking at
This is
what
going to be your
issues.
final opinion, actually.
These members are likely to agree on legislative agenda that develops the country, that comes before the House. There's likely to be consensus. Where the problem emerges is in the administrative measures or actions taken by government in appointments, in things that are outside the House. That is where party lines are drawn. And that's where you break ranks. Because then you go to the defense of the government, or you go to the opposition against the government. Can you forge an alliance there? That's where the rubber meets the
but you
road.
can- we can have
Because that is where the
legislation.
country
Yes.
is crying. It's not crying about legislation in the House. It's crying about extra legal issues.
Let me say,
Actually, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that in your closing remarks. Motegi, David has spoken to the issue of what we've heard here, and it seems to be that the most important thing out of this conversation has been the fact that young parliamentarians can work together regardless of party lines. What have you taken away from this debate? We've talked about impeachment, talked about dialogue, we've talked about young parliamentarians and corruption, which you raised. Any hope?
I think these two gentlemen don't want to accept the fact that it's not because they're Jubilee chairman. It's because there is a lot of rent seeking in those committees. They summon cabinet secretaries, they are facilitated and go, the thing officials out after that. That is a fact. And you're just trying to put your hand in the sand about that matter.
Okay. So final statements.
Okay.
I started with you, so I'll start with you.
Right, okay. My final comment will be that, first of all, David, it is very important, and as we said, that we will come together where the interest of the country is at stake. I'll be very honest with you in terms of legislation and moving things, legislative agendas. But I will be very worried if the opposition you want the opposition to be in bed with the government. Then who will check on the government? Ichungwa and I will hold hands in as far as ensuring that constructive legislations are brought to the House, because by implementing those legislations, the lives of the many Kenyans will be affected positively. But I will check on him, not him, he's just a member, but the Jubilee, the executive, the Jubilee government. It is now my responsibility as a member of the Court Coalition to check and ensure that even those legislations which have been passed are implemented as they are. So all I want to say as I end is that I think it will be a good thing for Kenyans to have the kind of dialogue that Mheshimiwa Ishungwa and myself have just had here. Be open, candid on issues, put them on the table, but at the end of the day, ensure that the country is bigger than all of us. And we must, that is the rallying point. That is what CORD is trying to push for. There is no any other agenda of dividing the country or any other agenda of undermining anybody or wanting to be given a share in government that CORD has at all. Not at all. We have to do our job as the oversight of the Jubilee government, and we will do that very responsibly. And my friends should stand up to the heat. I realize he declares a war as we started here and said that, we are in a war. We must drop all the other important issues of parliamentary oversight and deal with this war. No, that's not how it's going to be. But I want to say that as a member of the coalition, my intention was not to scare you that much in terms of dropping the priorities of the country and running to the defense of your own coalition. It is, I think it's been a good moment, and we will continue to work together.
It seems to me, listening to both of you, that there's a lot more, you have more in common than you have areas of divergence. So speak to that then, as you.
True, Amimo. Let me say, for us, we have more in common, and that has been my position. And when I advanced the proposal yesterday to a few CORD members of Parliament, for us to have our own dialogue within Parliament as leaders, away from the party owners, I think we were looking at that we have a lot more commonalities than our points of divergence. And really, that is a challenge I'd want to throw to the CORD coalition, especially in Parliament, that indeed, if we are determined to offer solutions to the people of Kenya without polarizing this country along ethnic lines, because that principally is what has been my fear, that we are polarizing this country along ethnicity, and it will only resort to the kind of things, and probably worse than we saw in 2007, 2008. And my prayer is that the CORD coalition will see sense in coming together to deliberate on those issues that will improve the lives of the people that voted for them. Just like I want to improve the lives of the people that voted for me
not just
as a
of every
Jubilee
Kenyan.
member. Of every Kenyan. And I think that is where we should converge at that point, whether we are Jubilee or CORD members of Parliament. Let those who are outside Parliament, the Honorable Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka and others, let them deliberate on the issues they want to deliberate on outside Parliament. But again, more importantly, without exciting public emotions and inciting Kenyans against other Kenyans. Because, as I said, my fear is that we are setting up this country for chaos. And I have said it before without any fear of contradiction, that the thought of a revolution in this country is a thought that is indeed harbored by certain people in this country. But I want to believe that Kenyans can read in between the lines and are more intelligent than they were some years back, and will not allow themselves to be incited to achieve political agendas of certain individuals in this country. And lastly, let us all work together, because I know there is an opportunity for us to work together as CORD, as Jubilee, without necessarily being divided along our party and ethnic affiliations. Because we are one united nation, and we can only build this nation together.
Okay. Thanks very much for a very lively conversation. That was Kimani Ichung'wah, the TNA Member of Parliament for Kikuyu. And we've also had Abdikadir Aden, who's the ODM Member of Parliament for Balambala. Our thanks also to our panelists for the insightful questioning and robust debate. David Makali, political analyst, and Mutegi Njau of Royal Media Services. Thank you too for watching, for engaging with us. My name is Ura Kamimo. We'll see you next week.